right, enough of the whiners and the criers have spoken loud enough. They've got the attention of the FTC. Here comes some change. Hey everybody, how you doing? Dash and Dave here again. This comes to us from MarketWatch.com, filed by Live Sumagase. FTC sends a warning to Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and other gig work companies. Federal regulator adopts policy statement that seeks to protect gig workers from a power imbalance that leaves workers more exposed to harms from unfair, deceptive, and anti-competitive practices and likely to amplify such harms when they occur. Federal Trade Commission announced Thursday, that was yesterday, September 15th, 2022, announced Thursday that it plans to crack down on the exploitation of gig workers whom the agency said are entitled to protection regardless of their worker classification. The Commission adopted a policy statement that details issues gig workers face, including deceptive claims about their wages and hours, unfair contract terms, and more, and what the FTC plans to do about it. Although the Commission did not mention any companies by name, the message is clear. It plans to hold gig work mainstays like Uber, DoorDash, and Lyft, Instacart, accountable for the promises they make to potential workers and how they treat the ride-hailing drivers and delivery workers who use their platforms. Gig companies consider their workers independent contractors and have fought to keep doing so. President Joe Biden campaigned on addressing worker misclassification. This is the first action under his administration that specifically promises enforcement over gig companies' treatment of their workers. No matter how gig companies choose to classify them, gig workers are consumers entitled to protection under the laws we enforce. Cherry Murphy, a former Lyft driver and organizer with gig workers rising in California, cheered the FTC announcement on Thursday. Too many people for far too long have been lured into gig work with the promise of entrepreneurship that's just not there. Citing Federal Reserve statistics, the Commission said in its 17-page policy statement that 16% of Americans now earn money through an online gig platform, and that the gig economy touches nearly every aspect of American life, from food delivery to transportation to household services. The FTC also cited its own report that shows gig workers are disproportionately people of color, Latino, Black, and Asian adults comprising 69% of gig workers, according to the report, with only 12% of workers identifying as white. According to the policy statement, the FTC will focus on gig economy issues that include deception or misrepresentation about how much workers could earn and how much flexibility they actually have, as well as the responsibilities put on workers versus the companies. The Commission noted that gig companies control gig workers through algorithms, which are hidden in a system that fosters a power imbalance, leaving workers more exposed to harms from unfair and deceptive and anti-competitive practices, and is likely to amplify such harms when they occur. The Commission said it plans to complement work other federal agencies are doing by examining unlawful business practices and harms to market participants. It mentioned that it already has started rulemaking proceedings related to deceptive wage claims, and last fall it issued related notices to companies like Amazon.com, Flex Association, a trade group representing Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, Grubhub, GoPuff, Hotskip Drive, and Shipt, which is owned by Target, said it was present during Thursday's open meeting where the FTC voted 3-2 to adopt the policy statement. During today's meeting, we heard from workers and advocacy groups emphasizing how app-based work provides flexibility and independence that lets millions of people earn additional income on their own terms, said Kristen Sharp. What's missing from the FTC's policy statement is the perspective of those very workers the agency seeks to protect. All right, Studio Daveed here. Let's unpack this, as they say. First off, this FTC policy statement, what this means is basically they say we have a job to do, we have rules and regulations that we enforce, and we intend to fulfill that duty in respect to the gig delivery company. If a gig work company is using deceptive practices, then the FTC needs to jump on them with both feet. I think we can all agree on that. The big thing here is what is considered deceptive practices. The policy statement details issues gig workers face, including deceptive claims about their wages and hours. Now, the thing that jumps right out about deceptive wages is not seeing the entire payout many times on a job offer when it comes up on the app. Grubhub does show you the full payout, full transparency. Uber Eats and DoorDash sometimes will hide a portion of the pay on the offer screen. You do not see it until the end of the delivery. This practice has been a thorn in the side of many gig delivery people. I personally don't mind it. I kind of like the hidden tip thing myself, but I could see that ultimately the FTC might rule that full transparency, total job payout must be shown on the initial offer screen. Okay, fine and dandy. My 2 cents worth on that is, if such a ruling were to come down, I think the gig company apps should have a clause in there that if you use a third-party app that cherry picks and fishes and determines which job to take, something that's automatic versus your finger presses on the screen, then that should be automatic deactivation permanently for life. Because people out there using that stuff, they're just fishing, they're just scooping up money, and they're trying to get around the rules, if you will, and they're using mechanics or technology in order to get around the normal practices that you would consider, for taking a job and all that. So yeah, we could see full transparency in the job offer totals on the screen, but again, if that's the case, any use of a third-party app to circumvent actual touching the screen, yada yada yada, instant permanent deactivation in my opinion. As far as what hourly wage is available to a gig worker using one of these delivery gig apps, Tony of DoorDash has been rather consistent over the last couple years of saying that the average dasher can average about $23 an hour. Now, they don't say you can do that for 4 hours in a row. They don't say you can do it for 8 or 10 hours in a row. They're very careful about their statement. The other thing to remember is if the average dasher averages $23 an hour, that means there's some of them out there making $18 an hour, and there's some of them out there making $27 an hour to get the average of $23 an hour. So we got to be real careful about how people label deceptive claims on the wages when it comes down to the hourly wage rate. The next sticking point is that gig companies consider us independent contractors, and there are people out there that call this a misclassification of worker. Several times in this article, we are classified as workers for the gig work companies, and that could be nothing further from the truth. It's pretty simple on its face, in my opinion. The delivery gig companies, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, they are brokerages. They go out there and create business contacts that then they put forward to us as independent contractors that can then pick and choose the job offers that we wish to take. We are not employees of DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub. And as far as the IRS is concerned, we've never been their employees, and we are not their employees. We are independent, self-owned business entities. The cry to have us as employees of these gig work companies comes from the few whiners and the criers that failed at Taco Bell or McDonald's, and now they're failing as their own personal business entity, and they need help, they need time off, they need paid vacation. Oh my, oh my. I did like the quote, "No matter how gig companies choose to classify them, gig workers are consumers entitled to protection under the laws we enforce," Samuel Levine, director of the FTC's Bureau of Consumer Protection, said in a statement. I could not agree with that anymore. If there is some deceptive practices going on out there and we're getting screwed and they're not telling us the whole story, jump on them with both feet. Hell yeah, I think we can all agree on that. There was also a statement made, "Too many people for far too long have been lured into gig work with the promise of entrepreneurship that's just not there." I don't understand that statement at all, except it's somebody that's getting uppity and is listening to these whiners and criers. I've done a lot of gig work. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and read a lot like the rest of you. I've never seen anything that said I'm going to make $50,000 to $100,000 a year. At the best, up front, these gig work apps are promoting their business opportunity through their app as part-time supplemental work. When DoorDash released its figures earlier this year, only 7% of the people using its app the DoorDash app is their full-time moneymaker. Everybody else, the overwhelming majority of DoorDash drivers out there work less than 4 hours a week. It's for pocket money. So yeah, entrepreneurship, I'm not sure where they're barking on that one. Then the FTC cites its own report that shows that gig workers are disproportionately people of color, Latino, Black, and Asian adults, comprise of 69% of gig workers, according to the report, with only 12% of workers identifying as white. That's a bad thing? These so-called marginalized groups have found a manner in which to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Yeah, let's put a lid on that. Then the last big one here. The commission noted that gig companies control gig workers through algorithms, which are hidden in a system that fosters a power imbalance, leaving workers more exposed to harms from unfair, deceptive, and anti-competitive practices. I'm not sure what this power imbalance they speak of is, unless it's the people out there that failed at Taco Bell rolling a burrito that are failing at this gig work economy as their own business entity, that take 4 $2 jobs in a row, and after an hour's time they've only made $8 an hour, and they're not smart enough to pick and choose and be selective. I just don't understand what this power imbalance that they're referring to is, that leaves workers more exposed to harms from unfair and deceptive and anti-competitive practices. You know, I've said this before in some of my other videos, make every damn job pay $12.50, and we'll just go with that, and then you can do 3 of those in an hour, and we're up to $36 an hour. Hell yeah, bring it on. But you know, I just don't, you know, that's not the answer. But anyway, it's some of this wording, you know, it's coming from these groups headed by people that have failed at this, that found out that they're a pretty good talking head, standing up and speaking for these workers, supposedly they feel that they're, you know, standing up for, and you know, that we never get anywhere with that, in my opinion. So my 2 cents worth on this FTC policy statement as a whole in general, I have absolutely no problem with it, and neither should you. They're saying they're going to step in, do their job, enforce the current rules that they have, you know, and we'll see what kind of new rules come up specifically for us. But I have no problem with that. If there's deception being put our way, then it needs to be addressed. I have no problem with that, and neither should you. But what was very interesting at the very end of the article, this Kristen Sharp, Chief Executive Flex, which represents all of these gig companies, says, what's missing from the FTC's policy statement is the perspective of those very workers the agency seeks to protect. Yes, there was an individual from that group from California that purported to be a mouthpiece for us, but how about we get the regular people, the real people in there that are doing this to make some statements versus a mouthpiece? I generally found that statements from the actual boots on the ground is much more effective than the heads of organization as mouthpieces. Now, on a related subject, the other day, about the same time this news came out from the FTC, there was a news article that I read about a settlement between Uber and the state of New Jersey about back taxes and pay and yada, yada, yada. This had been going on, I think, since 2017, even prior to COVID. And from what I gather, this was between Uber alone, the ride-sharing app program, and the state of New Jersey. It had nothing to do with food delivery, even Lyft. It was Uber ride-sharing alone. Important distinction. And if you saw that article, there was an important distinction to be made that they actually very well made in the article. I give it up to the reporter for doing that. That the state of New Jersey, each individual state, may have different rules and regulations pertaining to contract workers and how they're labeled, how they're classified, how they're paid, yada, yada, yada. Okay, each state gets to make its own rules in addition to what the federal rules are. In this case, it's my understanding that Uber was not playing according to New Jersey state law, rule, regulation, yada, 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 and they got caught. You know, maybe it was just ignorance, they didn't know, you know, who knows. So anyway, but yeah, so there can be some differences between states. We've seen that already, you know, New York, California versus Iowa and Missouri, whatever, you know what I'm saying. So this settlement with New Jersey should not be taken as anything that's coming soon. soon to your neighborhood. It was specifically related to New Jersey and their law and regulation. All right, guys and gals, that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you can take something from this video and put it to use for yourself. Thanks for coming along for the ride, and hope to see you next time.